You are going to fill your tank this week. You already know roughly what it will cost. You have no choice about the price and no choice about the trip. That is just how it works. That is just how it has always worked. Except it has not always worked that way. There is a farmer in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania named Reuben. Quiet man, strong handshake. He has not been to a gas station in 3 years. Not because he drives less, not because he went electric. Because he grows his own fuel, in a field behind his barn, from a single plant, the same plant his family has grown on the same land since 1710. Last Tuesday morning I stood next to his tractor for 15 minutes waiting for it to stall. It never did. Reuben is not an eccentric. He is not a prepper. He is not doing something experimental or dangerous or illegal. What he is doing is older than the United States of America. It is older than Pennsylvania. It is older than the English language. The Roman Empire ran on this plant for 1,000 years. No oil wells, no refineries, no pipelines crossing the Mediterranean. And yet they built the ancient world's most durable infrastructure, aqueducts carrying water 60 miles through mountains, warships crossing entire seas, mills grinding grain for 1 million people in a single city. Every engine they owned ran on plants, and the number that connects ancient Rome to Reuben's field to your truck sitting in your driveway right now is this, 97. I am going to tell you what that number means. When you understand it, you will know exactly why this plant was made illegal in 1937, why 2,000 fuel stations vanished from the American Midwest in a single year, and why the man who invented the diesel engine disappeared from a ship in the middle of the night. Stay with me. The Roman economy is always summarized the same way in textbooks. Slave labor, military conquest, taxation, all true. But they miss the engine underneath all of it. The Romans were obsessed with energy conversion, turning raw natural material into power, light, heat, and motion at civilizational scale. Hemp rope rigged every Roman warship. Hemp canvas covered the sails that moved trade goods across the Mediterranean. Hemp fiber was woven into the tunics worn by legionaries who held the Rhine frontier for centuries. Flaxseed oil and hemp oil burned in lamps from Britain to North Africa. But here is the detail almost nobody mentions, and it connects directly to the number I am holding until the end. Roman agricultural writers documented hemp cultivation with the same seriousness they documented grain and olives. Collier-Miller's De Re Rustica, written around 65 AD, describes hemp cultivation across multiple regions of the empire. Pliny the Elder's natural history lists hemp oil among the standard lamp fuels across Roman territories. These were not footnotes. These were the agricultural handbooks of the most administratively sophisticated civilization the ancient world produced. What the Romans understood, and what took the modern world 1,800 years to rediscover in a Connecticut laboratory, is that this one plant produces two completely different fuels from two completely different parts of its own body. One fuel for compression engines. One fuel for spark engines, zero waste, zero petroleum. Zero supply chain controlled by someone else. They built 1,000 years of civilization on that knowledge. And when Rome fell, the knowledge did not fall with it. It moved into monasteries, into peasant farming traditions, into the hands of communities that worked the same land without interruption for generations. It stopped being written down by people with power. It became practice, which is exactly how the Amish carry it today. The Amish brought hemp cultivation with them from Switzerland and the Rhine Valley in the early 1700s, regions where the practice had continued unbroken from Roman times. By the 1720s, the Pennsylvania General Assembly was paying bounties for every pound of hemp fit for market. When Lancaster County was officially formed in 1729, an entire township was named Hempfield. That name is still on every road sign in the county today. More than 100 water-powered mills processed hemp fiber along Lancaster County waterways before 1870. It was not a crop the Amish happened to grow. It was a crop their civilization was organized around, exactly as Roman civilization had been organized around it 1,700 years before them. I drove out to meet Reuben on a morning when the fields were still wet. He walked me to the back of his barn, pulled a glass jar off a shelf, and poured something the color of pale cooking oil into a small diesel tractor. The engine caught on the first turn, no hesitation, no smoke, no cough. I asked where he bought the fuel. He pointed to the field behind the barn. I grew it, he said. That was the moment I understood what I was actually looking at, not a novelty, not a hobby project. A 300-year-old energy system that had survived prohibition, industrialization, and 80 years of deliberate suppression intact, functional, and pouring fuel into a running engine on a Tuesday morning in Pennsylvania. The plant is industrial hemp, cannabis sativa. And the confusion between hemp and marijuana was not accidental, it was engineered. I will show you exactly who engineered it in a few minutes. Industrial hemp contains less than 0.3% THC. The 2018 Farm Bill made it federally legal to grow anywhere in the United States. As legal as corn, as legal as wheat, hemp seeds contain roughly 30 to 35% oil by weight. Cold press that oil out, same equipment used for olive oil, and you run it through transesterification. You mix the oil with methanol and a small amount of lye. The mixture reacts, separates into two layers: biodiesel on top, glycerin on the bottom. Wash the biodiesel, let it dry, pour it into any diesel engine ever manufactured. Not a modified engine, any diesel engine, because the diesel engine was never designed for petroleum. Rudolf Diesel built his compression ignition engine in the 1890s. His intended fuel was plant oil. In 1900 he demonstrated it at the World Exposition in Paris, running it on peanut oil at the French government's request. The engine ran so smoothly most spectators did not realize it was burning vegetable oil. Diesel wrote that his engine could be fed with vegetable oils and would help considerably in the development of agriculture. He imagined a world where any farmer could grow their own fuel. He died on September 29, 1913. He boarded a steamer in Antwerp, ate dinner, retired to his cabin, and was never seen again. His bed was not slept in, his coat and hat were found folded beneath the stern railing. 10 days later, a Dutch fishing crew called a decomposed body from the North Sea. His son identified the personal effects. His wife opened a bag he had given her before boarding. It held 200,000 German marks in cash. Their bank accounts were nearly empty. In his diary, September 29th was marked with a cross, written before he left. He was days away from a meeting with the British Royal Navy about engines designed to run on plant oil. Engines that would make any navy independent of petroleum supply chains. After he was gone, nobody pushed to keep plant oil as the standard fuel. The petroleum companies stepped in and, within a decade, every diesel engine in the world was burning crude oil. The engine designed to free farmers became the machine that chained them to an oil company. Now the second fuel for your car, your generator, your chainsaw, your lawn mower. After you press hemp seeds for oil, you still have the entire stalk. Thousands of pounds per acre of woody fibrous material saturated with cellulose. That cellulose breaks down into simple sugars through a process called cellulolysis. Those sugars ferment. The fermentation produces ethanol, chemically identical to the alcohol already blended into every gallon of gasoline sold at any American pump today. Every gallon of regular gas contains up to 10% ethanol. That is E10. The ethanol in it comes almost entirely from corn. The ethanol from hemp stalks comes from the byproduct of a plant that already gave you biodiesel from its seeds. One plant, two fuels, two engine types, no waste. Henry Ford understood this 90 years ago. His 1908 Model T was designed to run on gasoline, ethanol, or any blend of both. In August 1941, Ford unveiled a prototype car with body panels made from hemp, soy, wheat straw, and flax. Lighter than fiberglass, he swung an axe into the trunk lid on camera. The axe bounced back. The panel did not dent. The car ran on hemp ethanol. Ford was 77 years old and still swinging. By 1941, it was already too late. In 1937, the Marijuana Tax Act was signed into law. The word marijuana was chosen deliberately. It was Mexican slang, unfamiliar to most Americans. If Harry Anslinger, the first commissioner of the Federal Bureau of Narcotics, had called it cannabis, every physician would have recognized it. If he had called it hemp, every farmer would have. By calling it marijuana, he severed the connection between a useful crop and the law designed to destroy it. Before taking the narcotics position, Anslinger had publicly stated there was no greater fallacy than the idea cannabis caused violence. He did not believe it was dangerous, but prohibition had ended in 1933 and his department was about to lose its purpose. He needed a new enemy. He had allies who needed the plant gone for entirely different reasons. William Randolph Hearst owned newspaper chains, timberland, and paper mills. Hemp produced paper cheaper and faster than wood pulp. DuPont had just patented nylon. Hemp fiber competed with it directly. Andrew Mellon, Secretary of the Treasury and the wealthiest man in America, had invested heavily in DuPont. Mellon was also Anslinger's father-in-law. He had personally appointed him to the narcotics position. And Standard Oil had every reason to see plant-based fuel infrastructure disappear permanently. These men did not need to meet in secret rooms. They had newspapers, Congress, and a federal bureau. The American Medical Association sent Dr. William Woodward to oppose the act. He testified that the claims against cannabis were not supported by science. His testimony was dismissed. The act passed on August 2, 1937. Here is the detail that should stop you completely. That same year, a fuel called Agrol was selling at 2,000 service stations across the American Midwest, Indiana to South Dakota. Agrol was an ethanol gasoline blend produced at a plant in Atchison, Kansas, backed by the same farm chemistry movement Ford had championed. It worked, it sold, customers returned. Then the managers started reporting something they could not ignore: market manipulation, coordinated pressure from petroleum interests. Agrol sold for 17 cents a gallon. Leaded gasoline sold for 16, 1 cent difference. The American Petroleum Institute lobbied against every tax incentive bill that could have closed that gap. Between 1933 and 1939, petroleum interests defeated 19 federal bills and 31 state bills supporting alcohol fuel blending. By 1939, the Atchison plant closed. 2,000 stations gone in under 3 years, the only commercial plant fuel network in American history, destroyed in the same 24-month window that the Marijuana Tax Act buried hemp. Same war, different weapons, same for winners. In February 1938, Popular Mechanics published an article headlined "New Billion-Dollar Crop." It described hemp as the standard fiber of the world and predicted it would generate thousands of jobs and an entirely new agricultural economy. The article was published 5 months after the Marijuana Tax Act had already gone into effect. The editors did not know the law had passed. By the time American farmers read about their billion-dollar crop, it was already illegal to grow it. The future was announced at its own funeral. Nobody in the room knew it. Now the number. In 2010, Professor Richard Parnes at the University of Connecticut ran hemp seed oil through standard transestrification in his biofuels laboratory. His team tested the result against American and European biodiesel quality standards. 97% conversion rate, not 90, not 93, 97. It passed every standard. And it showed something nobody expected: superior cold weather performance compared to every other biodiesel on the market. Parnes stated publicly that a farmer already growing hemp might be able to produce enough fuel to power their entire operation from the seeds alone. Here is what that looks like practically. 1 acre of hemp produces roughly 700 pounds of grain. Cold press that and you get approximately 20 gallons of oil, which converts to approximately 20 gallons of finished biodiesel. Enough to run a diesel generator for 2 to 3 weeks or carry a tractor through an entire planting season. That same acre produces over 5,000 pounds of stalk. Ferment and distill those stalks and you add a meaningful ethanol yield on top. A cold press runs between $300 and $800 for a home-scale unit. A biodiesel reactor can be built from a used electric water heater for under $300. Methanol and lye are available at hardware and chemical supply stores. Reactor plans are free from multiple university extension programs. For ethanol, the federal government issues a free fuel alcohol permit through the TTB, the Alcohol and Tobacco Tax and Trade Bureau. You apply online, you get approved. You legally distill ethanol for motor fuel on your own property. The still and fermentation tank together cost less than a single month of fuel for a working farm truck. The ethanol blends into standard gasoline at 10 to 15% with zero engine modifications, identical to E10 and E15 at the pump. Brazil proved this at national scale in the 1970s, millions of vehicles running on blends up to 24% ethanol for decades. No engine failures, no recalls, proven for 50 years on another continent. The only thing missing in America was the legal right to grow the crop. Now you have it. Through all 80 years of that silence, the Amish kept growing, not as protest. Simply the way they continue everything practically, quietly, generationally. When the 1937 Act killed hemp across America, they adapted, but the knowledge never left. It lived at kitchen tables, in barn conversations, from grandfather to grandson. And when the 2018 Farm Bill made it legal again, they were ready for anyone else because they had never stopped. Rudolph Diesel designed an engine for plant oil and disappeared from a ship. Henry Ford built a car from hemp and watched the law destroy both. 2,000 agrol stations were pressured into closure. A magazine announced $1 billion crop 5 months after the law buried it. A professor in Connecticut got back a number to 97% that the petroleum industry wishes had never been printed. The Romans knew this for 1,000 years. The Amish kept it for 300. A university proved the chemistry in 2010. The federal government made it legal again in 2018. You were never supposed to connect those things. You were supposed to keep driving to the gas station, watching the price climb every winter, and never ask who decided it had to be that way. Most people watching this will fill their tank this week and never think about any of this again. You just thought about it. That is the difference. If you could plant 1 acre of hemp this season, what engine runs first? Your truck, your tractor, your generator? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one. Subscribe, because the next video covers what the Amish build from the part of this plant that never gets burned. The fiber, the construction material, the insulation that outperforms anything on a hardware store shelf today. The industry it threatens is even bigger than petroleum, and those men are not happy about it either.